I cannot believe it's the first week of September. It's getting down to the 40s at night. We are now in Maine, getting ready to go into Baxter State Park. Well, today is September 7th, and we're taking a break from the trail because it is pouring down rain. Several years ago, I read an article about some abandoned locomotives in the middle of the North Maine woods, so we're going to see if we can find them today. But before we get there, we decided to stop next to the Penobscot River and a series of rapids. This river runs at the south edge of Baxter State Park. When I was stationed in the Air Force, I actually had a kayak through this section of the river. So since it's raining, there's no mud to cotton today. So we are actually driving back to see the locomotives, and this is the road going back there. And the little thing said that this was a little rough road, but and then you hear Tammy go, "Ah!" It's not that bad. So you walk probably about a third of the mile on the trail, and lo and behold, you come across railroad tracks. So here's the trail. On the left is one railroad track, and on the right is the other one. And hard to see. So I'll put a link at the end about the history of this area. But there's the junctions between the two railroad tracks. After walking the rails for a little bit, we come to the first big artifact. I have no idea what it is. It's a boiler of some kind. There's stuff growing at the top. And what's interesting about this, they were not wooden ties, they're actually metal ties. I guess the wood was too valuable, metal was cheap. And this is a crossing station, switching area. And you're just walking through the woods. So we've probably walked maybe half a mile. We are at least 50 miles from the nearest paved road. And what's the end of any old railroad track but a pair of steam locomotives rusting in the woods? Go ahead. So it's just amazing. It's hard to tell how massive these things are until you walk through, and there's LOLLI in front of me. She's waving. And even if you're not a trained guy, you know, I'm an airplane guy, not a trained guy, but these are amazing. These wheels are like 5.5, 6 feet tall. You know, there's some wooden ties here. Pretty neat.
Here's Kurt up in the locomotive. He's getting ready to go up above, and maybe he can drive it.
Okay. What amazes me the most about these old boiler engines is how many bolts and nuts and screws they had on them. I cannot believe that these have been sent here over 100 years and nobody's decided to figure out how we might be able to scrap them. Now we're walking towards Eagle Lake from the locomotives. Come up here, and there's just more parts all over everything. So we got up this morning, knew it was going to rain. Then I noticed the clouds are coming from the northeast, which I thought was strange. And then I remembered, and somebody reminded us at the check-in point, that Hurricane Dorian is off the coast. This is the backwash from the hurricane. I wouldn't want to be out there in a canoe today. Totally amazing. Abandoned railroad cars. Some of the wood's still surviving, but not much longer. How long this goes along, this is just amazing. See how long it's been, you can see how big the trees are. So this is paper wood, so they were short lengths. And those are the railroad cars, some of the wood's still there. So over 100 years ago, they would haul the logs with the trains to this spot, and then they would put it on a tram and run them to another lake over half a mile away. So now it's time to take another hike and see if we can find the rest of the ruins. Well, Lolly, can you pull that eye ring out of the rock? So between the two lakes, there was this tram that they hauled the logs on from one lake to the other, and it runs all along the path we've been on. Pretty neat feat of engineering, all rusting away. This was created in 1902 and ran for 6 years or 6 seasons, whatever that means. Well, the seasons is in the winter. And the reason they did it is that one lake, Chamberlain Lake, flows north. Eagle Lake, which is where we're walking down into, flows south. So they wanted to float the logs south into the Penobscot River instead of north into Canada. And this was the engine that ran the trolley. Ooh, the big belt's still here. And this is how they did it. Boston, Mass, 1901. And it's fall, so the lake is low, but there's Chamberlain Lake, or Eagle Lake, I'm sorry. That's Eagle. And this is what powered the whole thing. No, not Hager, she didn't power the whole thing. And these are the two steam locomotives, the two boilers. They ran the steam up through there, which ran the donkey engine here, that ran the belt, that turned the gear that moved the logs through the woods. As you can see, there's actually 2 levels to this. So the top the logs would be on, and it's over a 6,000 foot cable, and it came back empty underneath like this. And it's just a big continuous loop of logs on around. So the whole system collapsed on itself. So here's a couple of the old rails, and you see 2 pieces of the cable. You come around here, and here's the top one. You can see the teeth. And there's the bottom. If you notice, the teeth on that one are pointed down. So that one is returning. And this is a wooden structure, rails on the bottom and a wooden structure, and all the wood is just as collapsed. If you're someone who loves mushrooms and fungus, you should have been along with us on this trip. The colors went from white to bright red to orange. Actually, was a whole set of them that looked like a little village for leprechauns. And of course, the flowers couldn't be outdone by the fungus. I have no idea what type of flowers these were, but they sure were beautiful. Well, it's time to leave the trains, Allagash Waterway, and head towards Bachelor State Park in Mount Katahdin. Well, the weather is clearing up, and we will summit Mount Katahdin on September 9th. See you later.